Marhaba! Hey, what's up channels? Welcome back to the channel. For those who are new, my name is Vaishya Fatma and I'm a 4th year MBBS student at DOW Medical College, connecting my world with yours. So today's video, as the title suggests, is about second year MBBS books, all the books and stuff that you need to have in your second year MBBS, because मैंने video बनाई है for first year books and for third year books. मैंने second year की नहीं बनाई थी. I know I was supposed to make this a year ago because my immediate juniors, batch 25, requested me a lot for this video because they had their second year, but I could not because I had my awards, because third year MBBS is very different from your first 2 years. So yeah, I could not get enough time to make that video, but that doesn't matter because we have so many more videos that are on your way. So yeah, in this video we'll be talking about all the books that you need to have, and I will also be giving you a little insight to your second year MBBS, that कितने modules होते हैं and the duration of each module. So yeah, let's get started. So the curriculum of your second year MBBS is divided into 6 modules. अच्छा, I'm talking about most universities in Pakistan. कुछ universities में ज़्यादा modules होते हैं, कुछ में कम होते हैं, but we're talking about majority here. So ज़्यादातर universities में second year MBBS में 6 modules हैं. सबसे पहला module is your head and neck module, in which we talk about all the anatomy of head and neck. We don't talk about brain here because it will be taught in your second module, that is neurosciences module. This is one of the lengthy module of second year because we are going to study about the most important part of our body, that is brain. So neurosciences module, maybe we talk about neuroanatomy and the function, the physiology of brain. So neurosciences module takes a total of 8 weeks to complete. Then we have our endocrinology module, that is comparatively smaller module, and it's very easy to study. I personally like it because out of all the modules I got the highest marks in endocrinology module, so it was my favorite. Then we have our reproduction module, which is also an important module, but it's quite easy. Then we have the lengthiest module of your whole 5-year MBBS journey. So this module is called GIT and liver module, in which you study about GI tract and liver and its function and anatomy and pathology as well. So it's quite a lengthy module. You might have to give extra time to complete its syllabus, but it's very fun to study, so you'll have fun studying it. Then we have our renal module, which is quite a smaller module as compared to other modules, but it's more of an integrated module. I've always found it very difficult to study because its exam बहुत difficult आता था हमारे time पर. These are your 6 modules: head and neck, neurosciences, GIT and liver, reproduction module, physiology module, and we have our renal module. If you want to have details of each module, how to study your neuro and other modules, you can ask me in the comments. I might make a different video for this, but in this video we are going to focus on what books that you need to have this whole year. So coming towards the books, you must know that what are your main subjects this year. So like first year, the major subjects in your second year are again your anatomy, physiology, and some of the pathology as well. Others are the minor subjects such as MBBS. Plus this year, you'll also be taught medicine and surgery and radiology as your minor subjects, because third year में these are your main subjects. So they try to give you a little insight to your third year as well, ताकि आपको थोड़ी आदत हो जाए medicine और surgery पढ़ने की. So these will be your very minor subjects. You have to complete through your slides. So you won't be having medicine and surgery books. Those books that you had in first year, same होंगी, but some are your new books. So we'll discuss them in a little detail. So your first subject is anatomy. Anatomy is divided into 3 sub-subjects, that are gross anatomy, embryology, and histology. So for gross anatomy, as I always suggest, I would always prefer Gray's Anatomy. That looks something like that. It's a very nice book. In first year you might have studied it. People are very confused between KLM and Gray's. I would say KLM is a very nice book. It's a very detailed one, and most of the institutes follow that book. But Gray's is something that a student has to have to learn anatomy because it's very illustrated, and in anatomy you need illustrations to understand what is happening inside the body. These diagrams are very pretty, and fun fact, many teachers and lecturers in your university must have been using the diagrams out of Gray's to explain you the topics that they have to teach in anatomy. So yeah, I would suggest from learning point of view, Gray's is a nice book. In comparison, I find Gray's more comprehensible and understandable and very easy to grasp the concept. So yeah, for gross anatomy, Grays is my number one. If you like KLM, you can go for it. For KLM, do follow the atlas because it has diagrams. So KLM it's kind of difficult to understand the text, so it will be very easier for you to understand it through the atlas. Coming towards the embryology, there are two books that people usually use. Number one is Langman and the other one is KLM. But I personally like KLM, the Developing Human by KLM, because it's detailed and I find it more understandable. I don't know, most of the exams are from this book, so I would suggest this. आपको embryology इतना पढ़नी नहीं होगी आगे, so make sure that you're studying from a textbook instead of a short book. Then we have histology. For histology, most of the people study from this book that is called Lycosan. It's a nice book, but it's again a short book. It's not a textbook for histology, but if people don't take histology, the subject histology, very seriously, so they tend to follow this book. इससे exam भी निकल जाता है. It's very nicely written. But if you have been following me for a year now, you must know that my favorite book for histology is always Jene Koira, the textbook. I love that book. I don't know where is it. I might have put it in my cupboard because it's very illustrated, and histology may you need illustrations to understand because it's very microscopic. I personally love Jene Koira because exam का जो question bank है mostly out of Jene Koira. I like it, but it's up to you. If you want to study histology in detail and you love to study histology, go for Jene Koira. Otherwise, this book is amazing. Like you said. Also, one book that I forgot to mention, that is B.D. Chaurasia for your gross anatomy. I don't know why people like it. It's a nice book. I have it because my father brought this book to me. I find it very detailed, extra detailed. There is stuff that are not being taught, but you have to study if you're studying this. So yeah, I don't vote for it. Personally, don't like it. So all these books will be used in most of your modules for anatomy. But in one module, that is your neurosciences module, there is a special type of anatomy that is called neuroanatomy. इसमें आपको थोड़ा you talk about brain, you don't talk about bones and flesh only. So viscera की anatomy basically is from this book that is called Snell's Clinical Neuroanatomy. This will be your most important major book in your neurosciences module because you have to study the whole book in your neurosciences module for covering the anatomy. So it's a nice book, but it's quite difficult to understand. So if you find it difficult, go for any video on YouTube, type neuroanatomy and type the topic that you want to study. Then it will become easy to understand it, but you have to study this book. So that was all for anatomy. Coming towards your next subject, that is your physiology. It is going to be your major subject in most of the modules. So for physiology, as everyone would suggest and I would suggest, this is the major book, Guyton and Hall Physiology. It's a very nice book, but if you have studied physiology from Guyton in first year, you must know that there is a famous joke that mechanism is unknown for Guyton and Hall. Yeah, that's true, but for exam point of view, it's a very nice book because ज़्यादातर questions इसी में से आते हैं. Even the major headings, if you're not studying it properly, if you go through the major headings, उसमें भी कुछ questions आ जाते हैं. So yeah, so it's a nice book. Again, it's a very detailed book, but I think it's fun to study. But if you're running short on time and if you want to review physiology, then this book most people suggest, and I also reviewed it for one of my vivas in reproduction module basically. So it's Firdaus Review of Physiology. So for physiology, these are the two books that I personally suggest. Some people also go through Irfan Masood for reviewing, but I think Firdaus is enough. Next we have is biochemistry, because biochemistry is going to be one of your major subjects this year as well. And for that, I personally like this book, which is Lippincot's Illustrated Review of Biochemistry. And the reason why I like it, because it's very well illustrated. There are tables within the chapter, and by the end of each chapter, there are flow charts and diagrams to illustrate and summarize the whole chapter. So it becomes very easy when you're reviewing the chapter. You just have to go through the table and you're good to go. So yeah, for me, this one is a good book. Some people also follow Harper, but I find Lippincott better than Harper. Then we have pharmacology, although it is the minor subject in most of the universities in first and second year. But in some universities such as DOW University, pharmacology is one of the major subjects in some modules. So yeah, for pharmacology, most people like Lippincott, but for me, I follow this book, that is Katzung's Review. This is not the major book of Katzung. There is a very बहुत मोटी किताब है Katzung की, that is the textbook of Katzung for pharmacology. But this one is a review book, and it's a very nice book because I personally find pharmacology very dry. And you have to cram all the names. I always followed Lippincott for pharmacology in first year, but in third year I went through this book, that is Katzung Review of Pharmacology, and it's a very nice book because it's very precise. Everything that you must remember is written here, so you have to just go through the chapter and know that this is important. You just don't have to, divide the important and non-important stuff. You know that everything in this chapter is important. Plus, it has a table at the end of each chapter, which, a classification of each the chapter that you're studying. There's a classification of drug, and it's very well summarized and it's very well written, because मैंने अभी third year का पढ़ा था from this book, and believe me, I was able to solve every question of pharmacology in my MCQs as well as in my vivas. I knew all the stuff because I only followed this book. Katzan की जो detail book है, it's very much detailed, like it's extra sometimes for a second year student. So if you like to study pharmacology, go for this book, I would suggest. And if in your university pharmacology is not a major subject, I would again suggest to go through this book, because it's easy to understand and it will prepare you for your third year, because third year mein you have to go through pharmacology a lot, because it's one of the major subjects, just like medicine and surgery. So the next major subject that you have in your second year is pathology, and for pathology there are two books that are generally followed by people. First is your basis pathology by Robinson and Cotton, and the other one is basic pathology, basis and basic. And most people jump from one book to another, because some people say that basis is a very detailed book, basic is थोड़ी सी छोटी किताब. But for me, both books are very nice and very well written. In fact, basis is much more detailed than basic, and when I went through basic after studying basis, I realized that basic is basically short notes from basis. So if you like to go through a more detailed text, go for basis, because it's very well illustrated. But if you don't like going through that much into details, go for basic, because it's a precise book and it has all the important stuff that you must know for your exam. Another mention is of Pathoma, that I think all the medicos love. It's a very nice book and it's very precise as compared to basis. It's very very precise basically. जो हमारे यहाँ basis में 100 pages का chapter होता है, वो Pathoma में 3 या 4 pages का होता है. But for studying from Pathoma, there is a requirement that you have to go through videos, because the text itself is not as understandable as it seems. But I would suggest that if pathology is your major subject, why not go through textbook first, and then for reviewing go through Pathoma, because studying from short books is never enough. Because textbook is something that you have to know. It is for your concepts, it's not for your marks. Pathoma might be able to prepare you for your 4 GPA, but it will never give you as much concepts as basis can give you. So if you have to study pathology as your major subject, I would highly recommend to go through basis or basic, whatever suits you, but keep Pathoma for reviewing. And honestly, this goes for every subject. If a subject is your main subject, if it's your major, if it's more asked in your exam, I would highly suggest to go through your textbooks instead of short books. Don't never ever start with your short books until it is necessary. So these were all the books that you had to follow in your second year MBBS. But in some universities there is another module, that is your infectious module, because infectious module mein you have to study about microorganisms, or uski microbiology you should know. So for that I suggest Levinson. It's a bit of a detailed book, but it's easy to understand. All you have to do is to memorize stuff. There are so many organisms, I think 62, 72. And you have to know the details and the classification of that organism, which family does it belong, and what diseases does it cause, and its life cycle as well. So I followed this book, that is Levinson, because it's a nice book. It's exam oriented. But for learning or memorizing stuff from this book, from Levinson, you have to have this book that is called Sketchy Microbiology. So Sketchy is basically a series of flashcards for microbiology, for pharmacology, and for, I think, pathology. And in Sketchy there are flashcards just like this. So using Sketchy Microbiology, you will be able to remember a story at the back of your mind for each organism, and this will help you remember all the important details that you have to know for your exam. Alright guys, so this comes the end of the video. I think that I have told you about all the books that you have to have in your second year. Let me know if you want me to make more videos like this, or if you want me to make a video on a specific subject or a module. I am more than glad to be here. I know I took a very long break, about 6 months or 8 months, and it was, trust me, it was very necessary for me. But now I'm back and I'm very happy to connect with you all, and I hope that I'm bringing a positive change in your life. Anyways, keep supporting me, and I have again faith in you. I know that you're trying hard to become a very good doctor, and if you're a pre-med, I know that you're working hard to get here in my position. So yeah, best of luck, stay connected with me. Bye bye.